what government does, it engages in legalized theft.
Walter Williams is a columnist and free market economist at George Mason University.
If I see an elderly lady sleeping on the grate, well, I could walk up to somebody with a gun in my hand and say, give me your $200. Having gotten that person's $200, I then go down and buy the lady some medical attention, some food, and shelter. Well, I think that the average American would find me guilty of theft. And where Congress takes the $200 from somebody and they go down and help the lady out, I assert that there's no distinction to be made between those two acts.
Williams says there can be good intentions in governing, but when we evaluate public policy, the effect of the policy is more important than its intention.
The framers did not intend for us to be a democracy. But even more important, just because something is legal does not make it moral. I don't think that man's nature is inherently good. There must be constraints in the recognition that we need controls on human behavior. Matter of fact, I've suggested to people that when we die, and if at our next destination we see anything like a Bill of Rights, we know that we're in hell. Because a Bill of Rights in heaven would be an insult to God. It would be saying we can't trust God.
Williams believes modern free markets are the most moral and productive system man has devised.
Throughout mankind's history, the way to accumulate great wealth was through looting, plundering, and enslaving your fellow man. It's been only relatively recent that to be able to create great wealth, you serve your fellow man. The reason why Bill Gates is so very, very wealthy isn't because he enslaved, looted, and plundered his fellow man. He served his fellow man.
In his writings, Williams observes a lessening of the capitalist spirit in the U.S. since the 1930s.
I think one key indicator of that is that we went from 1776 to 1930, and during that interval, we had depressions, we had recessions, sometimes they call them panics, and nobody thought that the federal government ought to intervene in the economy to correct the economic affairs. Now, it wasn't until the Hoover administration and later the Roosevelt administration, they did intervene in the economy when there was the 1930 Depression. And as a result of their intervention, they created the longest and the deepest depression in U.S. history. Matter of fact, the depression that started in 1930 really was not over until about the end of World War II. But however, a lot of people will say, well, look, unemployment went down during this interval, during, let's say, 1941. Well, of course, unemployment will go down if you take millions of men and put them in the army instead of on the street. What's the basic difference between Americans as human beings and the Romans, or the French, or the Spanish, or the Portuguese, or the British? These are great empires of the past, but they went down the tubes. And they went down the tubes for doing precisely what we're doing now. That is bread and circuses, the growth of government, and the restrictions on individual liberty. Our movement away from the vision of the founders has caused us a lot of difficulty and has moved us away from the free market system.